Hey y'all, my name is Taylor. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. So today I'm going to be talking about my most disappointing reads of 2023 along with some DNFs. And I had debated on whether I wanted to even make this video. It does feel a little bit pessimistic, or maybe even that I'm coming for these books and the authors, or even if you like some of these books. That is not the intention. Really, it's just you know, if your tastes are similar to mine, maybe these would be things that you can kind of keep in mind whenever you're choosing your next book, or kind of almost have your guard up whenever you're reading, so you're not blindsided like I was in some situations. So really, I know that the reader experience can vary so much person to person. So what one person may like, or what I may like, may be totally different. And then also, a lot of Christians may be on different parts of their walk with the Lord, and so their convictions may be different. I know a year ago, some of the things that bother me now may not have bothered me then, so it's really just a journey of discernment. So yeah, so these are some things that I wanted to share with y'all in case you might be interested. So we're going to start with the DNFs, and I have made a dedicated shelf on Goodreads. I have to try and figure out how to do it on Storygraph too. I'm still trying to figure out that out, but I just recently started doing that on Goodreads. I didn't know you could do that. I was not capturing my DNFs until then. I don't review DNFs because I feel like you know, I don't have enough to merit rating a book, but I did want to remember the ones I don't want to go back and read, and then also, in case y'all were curious too, and then there's like a status update you can do for Goodreads, kind of explaining why you DNF'd, which is really nice. So yeah, there is a shelf for that in case you're curious throughout the year, some of those. But anyways, so for this year, 2023, I had 5, and I'm pretty good about picking out books that I hear a lot about from a lot of different people that I trust. I have learned the hard way this year that I really, unless I know it's clean, I'm just not going to take the chance, because of some of these DNFs, that's part of the problem for me, is that they weren't clean. And yeah, I think I did 5 DNFs is not bad for a whole reading year, so I'm not mad about it. But yeah, so these are the ones. So the first one is Mrs. Lincoln's Dressmaker by Jennifer. Her last name starts with a C. I'm not gonna butcher it, but it is exactly what it talks about. It was really good. It was really interesting, particularly if you like history. It was like reading a history book, but novelized. It was very interesting to me. I learned some things that I didn't know before, like Abraham Lincoln is the one that set up the Thanksgiving holiday in America as part of a Thanksgiving to God, to set aside a time and day to do that. And that was really fascinating. A lot of stuff I don't remember because it was more, you know, battles and dates and times and who died and all that. So I got halfway through, literally like 50%. And by that point, there had been a couple of irreverent uses of God's name, which it's a secular fiction book. I don't like it, but it wasn't GD, but it was, you know, if you're not Christian, you may not be cognizant of being careful for using his name. And, you know, I was kind of like, I don't know if I should keep reading this, but it is really interesting. You know, I've had it recommended to me, and I want to give it a chance. So I kept reading, and then I got to the 3rd time, and this one was really strange and something that really bothered me. And it was a statement about Abraham Lincoln being like Jehovah. He's a Jehovah to former slaves in the United States, because he set them free from bondage and they have a new shot at life now. And I get the sentimentality behind it, that, you know, Jehovah, Jesus, he sets us free from our sin. I get it, but also I think it could have been worded differently. Like if you want to attribute it back to the time of Exodus. You could have said, you know, Abraham Lincoln is like Moses, like he led the people. Like that's a human, it's not God. You're not putting Abraham Lincoln and God on the same level. You know what I'm saying? You're using the name Jehovah, which only means God. And yeah, if you, God, Jehovah and Jesus, you can probably, they're, you know, interchange them. They're synonymous, right? God is Jesus, Jesus is God, Jehovah is God, Jehovah is Jesus, you know. So like Abraham is like Jesus. I don't feel like that's quite accurate, and I feel like that is sacrilegious and irreverent. And yeah, so I DNF that one. So anyways, number 2 of DNFs was What Happens Next by Suzanne Nelson. And this is marketed as a Christian fiction novel. And within the first 2 pages, there was a reference to the Enneagram, and that is something that's not okay with me. You know, you can look into the origins of the Enneagram and how it is demon inspired, and I just, no, that's a no for me. So I skipped that one. Jane in Love, I forget, Rachel something, I think. I'll put the cover up. This was, I really wanted to participate in Jane Austen July, and I saw this one, Pretty As You Please, on the library shelf. I mean, the cover is just so cute, and it's about Jane Austen, and I was like, oh, I'll pick it up and give it a shot, you know, trying to not be exclusively reading Christian fiction. I want to give other, you know, I want to give secular books a try if they're clean. So I was like, I'm going to give it a shot. And another use of, multiple uses of God's name irreverently. And then there was a part, it's about Jane Austen, and she goes forward in time to our time and how she meets somebody and falls in love or something. So the way she gets back in time, I would have been okay if she like just like walked through a doorway or, you know, whatever. But there was this woman that she went to see, and it just gave kind of witchy sorcery type vibes because she was speaking words over her and like saying these cryptic messaging of like foretelling her future, and I just felt really weird about it. And I was like, I don't know, this is like maybe 10% in, maybe, and I'm like, if I'm already feeling like this, I'm just not gonna risk it the rest of the way, you know. And we've already had some flinging out of God's name, like not GD, but you know, I just didn't want to continue. So Home for Christmas by Courtney Cole. This one, again, multiple uses of God's name irreverently, not GD, but still. And I think it was a side character. Yeah, it was a side character, like the main character's best friend. So the main character owns an inn, and it's Christmas time, and so she's trying to keep the inn going and discover the true meaning of Christmas, which in a secular book, I don't think you can find the true meaning of Christmas, but that's besides the point. I was trying to give this a shot. But anyways, the main character's best friend works for her, and she was interested in one of the guests, and she was talking about like seducing him and how it was about time. And the main character was like, no, don't go to his room. We can't afford like the reputation of that. Like, what if that gets out, you know? And I understand that there are, you know, flings in real life. But that's not something I want to read about. I feel very strongly that what you ingest into your body, spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally, you know, that impacts you. So I just didn't want to go there. Like, I don't know if that was, you know, in like the first 10%, how did the main character in her romance, or if there even was one, I don't even know. I didn't want to proceed further and see if there was anything else furtherly problematic. Last one is Christmas in the Scottish Highlands. So that one is about this do-gooder type girl. She lives in the Scottish Highlands, and it's Christmas time, and she's trying to help this older woman that lives in a castle by herself meet all of her Christmas wishes. And the grandson comes swooping in, and they don't like each other, so it's an enemies to lovers type romance. And yeah, so it was really cute. I liked it up until 50% in. And I feel kind of betrayed by the synopsis that I read somewhere. I can't even remember where I read it, but it was like, this would be good for fans of Debbie Macomber, whatever her name is. I thought she was a clean romance author. So I was like, okay, if she's clean, this book is probably clean too. No, not the case. At 50% in, the main girl and the love interest don't fully like each other still. Like they're like a very beginnings of a romance could be blooming, but they haven't said I love you. They're not in a relationship. They haven't gone on a date at all. There's still mistrust on both sides because you kind of get dual perspective. So both characters very recently have talked about how they don't entirely trust the other one. And there's a scene about they end up under the mistletoe, and it's late at night, and they do kiss, and it goes much more beyond just a kiss of wandering hands and what the wandering hands were doing, and then contemplating being on the floor and all of that. Like, no, I don't think so. And so yeah, that was a bye for me. No thank you. Most disappointing books of 2023. So these are books that I did finish, and I think I have ratings on Goodreads and Storycraft for all of these, I think. But in a nutshell, here we go. So the first one is Pathways by Camille Peters, and this is a reimagining fairy tale type story about an enchanted forest that takes this girl to different parts of the forest, and then one day she meets a stranger in the woods, and she falls for him, and it's kind of problematic because he is very dark and mysterious, and doesn't really share anything about himself. And so yeah, it's their romance, and I did not like it because that scene where they meet in the woods, he was very adamant about knowing her identity, and I'm like, no sir, I don't know you, and you're like, I won't let you leave until you tell me your name. That's very stalkerish and like killer vibes. Like, I don't know. I know it's a fairy tale, but the realistic side of me was coming through, and that was not endearing at all, and not cute. So his character throughout the entire book, he was very demanding and arrogant and rude, and I don't see why she fell for him. The character even was talking about how there's a dark side to him, but I can't help who I love, and it was kind of borderline toxic. I don't know, but yeah. And then there was a part of the story, he was engaged, like betrothed, because he is the prince. You know that, but the main character doesn't know that. He's engaged to someone he doesn't love, so he was trying to kiss the main character, and she was like, no, that's not right, you're engaged, this is not right, which I do credit the author for not letting them do anything other than have feelings. But still, like the cheating thing, he did break up with her eventually, but I'm like, bruh, no, you need to cut off all ties before you even broach that subject with this woman. That's just not right. And it was like 2 stars for me. It just bothered me the whole time. I just kept reading, hoping it would get better. Never happened. So the next one is the only physical book that I own of these. No, I lie. I do have another one. I just remembered. Okay, there's one of 2 that I own. Indigo Isle by T.I. Lowe. And this one was okay. It's like 3 stars. It's contemporary romance, kind of a grumpy sunshine. It's set in South Carolina, so that's why I was interested. I have a vlog. And by the way, if you watch that vlog and it ends really abruptly, I'm really sorry. The way it uploaded, I did not realize that the last clip of it deleted, and so it ends abruptly, and I deleted the original file, so I can't fix it. So sorry about that. But this book did have its own dedicated reading blog because I was so excited about it being set in South Carolina. I don't think I've ever read a book set in South Carolina before, so I was really living in my element here. Like, the nostalgia of knowing what the character was talking about, like how she worded things, and the phrases are just Southern to a T. The audiobook narrator was really good. I think her accent was pretty on point. So I was really loving the setting of this. The romance is where it fell flat for me, and then there was some content that bothered me. So the romance is a grumpy sunshine, and I found that with contemporary romance, I don't typically like those. This character in particular, she is something else. She I'm really bad about giving out synopses. So she is a location scout for a movie company. So she's scouting out the barrier islands of South Carolina. And so she comes across this island and she's like mesmerized by it. She trespasses and goes onto it and sees this house, and it's like kind of eerie because nobody's there. So she thinks, but she sees somebody in the top window, you know, looking at her. So she leaves. So she comes back later because she's like, I really want this place to be in the movie. I think this will be a good place. And she gets run off by this hooded figure who like growls at her like a beast or an animal. And so then she comes back again, and he tells her, no, I don't want you here. Leave. And so she doesn't, because she's like, oh, you're being super grumpy, and you're being rude, and that's not necessary. I'm just trying to, you know, be friendly. And so he calls the cops on her, and she gets upset about that. And I'm like, you're trespassing. Get off his property. He told you to leave. Obviously, you know, he called the cops on you. Don't be going and blaming somebody else for this. You caused this problem. And then there's one point where like he is constantly her going back to this island, and I know that's the point of the story. Like, obviously they have to meet and fall in love, like they have to be in each other's presence. But still, like, she kept going back and kept going back, and he's like, no. And then finally, like, she breaks through to him or whatever. But there's one part where he leaves her and takes off with her boat and disappears for a couple hours, leaves her on the island, and she goes into his house. Like, this person has a problem with boundaries. Obviously, he's not going to respect them while you're not there. So she goes into the house and finds his library and then reads his private diaries. And then she's like, oh, well, it's in the library. And if you have books in the library, that means you want them to be read. And I'm like, it's his personal house. It's his personal library, a house that is on an island. He's already told you to leave. Obviously, he don't want you in there. He don't want you reading his personal thoughts. Anyways, so, yeah. I had strong feelings about this one. Oh, and then the content. So, there is trigger warnings for a toxic sexual relationship, some kind of a bit of abuse, date rape is in here too. And this book goes into more detail than I would like. And there's also a side character who has a one-night stand, and she like exits the hotel room, and the main character witnesses it. And the side character is funny. Like, I liked her character, but she made poor decisions, and this was one of them. And she like makes the Mission Impossible sound, like she's, you know, being sneaky and leaving the room, and she like just goes into her hotel room without saying anything to her best friend. And yeah, that was kind of weird. And as a Christian, well, this is where it gets fuzzy, because the main character, she grew up Christian, but she doesn't really, she's kind of cut herself off from anything Christian. So she wasn't living a Christian life. If she had been, then that would have been the opportunity to say something to that friend, or, you know, like minister, you know, kind of, it could have been an opportunity to have some commentary on how you can help someone else, be that light, you know. But she wasn't living a Christian life, so she didn't really see a problem with it. So I did. And there were mentions about Grey's Anatomy and Days of Our Lives. And personally, like, if it's in a Christian marketed book, I don't want to hear about that stuff. Like, I know it is a part of everyday life, but I don't want to read about it in a Christian book unless you're like, it's about, you know, how to address it, like in a Christian way. As it being a part of a Christian book, and there was also a mention of meditation in here too. But again, the main character was not Christian, not leading Christian life. So it's easy to get misled if you're not, you know, in the Bible every day and you know, trying to live a Christian life. Anyways, so I feel like mentioning stuff like that, like Grey's Anatomy, Days of Our Lives, I think you have to be careful how to do it, because then people think, or Christians think, that it's okay. And those shows are definitely not okay. Particularly Grey's Anatomy. Like, that is just all kinds of sin. And yeah, I don't want to see it. Yeah, I just don't want that in my Christian novel. I have a higher standard for Christian books. If this was clean fiction, I would not have thought as harshly about it. But since it's marketed as Christian, I have a little bit higher standards for it. Okay, I'm done talking about this book. I'm keeping it because, and I rated it 3 stars because I really loved the setting and the nostalgia behind it. And it did have an overall good message about redemption and forgiveness and kind of letting God and other people into your heart. It had a good message behind it. Just some things were kind of problematic. So take that what you will. Some people do like this, so don't come for me if you do. And I didn't. So moving on. Okay. Oh, I didn't mean to go on for that long. Oh my goodness. All right. So next up is His Needs, Her Needs by Willard F. Harley Jr. And this is a marriage book. It is written by a marriage counselor. He's Christian. There's a chapter in the beginnings of the first chapter. He's like, my pastor asked me to bring this presentation or this knowledge to our church. And then there's like a few insertions of scripture. Like, it's like almost like he purposely put it in there to make it Christian for the Christian company, publishing company. It felt very forced. And there were some good nuggets in here that could be helpful. But I felt more, it was closer to like, women are from Venus and men are from Mars, or something secular. This gave more secular vibes to me. And there is one part in particular, I think the chapter is sexual fulfillment. And yeah, it goes into pretty explicit detail for a Christian book, in my opinion. But like, yes, that's a part of a marriage, but I don't know. I just was a little surprised about that content. So I'm keeping it just in case there may be some helpful things in here. But really, it was rebranded. Like, it looks pretty, you know, nice and more modern. But it was written, I think, originally like the 90s or the 70s. 86 is when it was first published. And it was originally, instead of making romantic love last, it was like something along the lines of like how to prevent adultery or something. Adultery was in the title, and I didn't know that until afterwards. I was looking at Goodreads and I saw the original version, and I'm like, that's truly what it is. It's like, if you don't fulfill your spouse, then they're going to cheat on you and leave you. And I'm like, I don't know about this, but yeah, some little bit good stuff in here. So I think I gave it 2 stars. This is one I did not do a full review on just before I started writing reviews. But yeah, that's my thoughts on this one. The next 2 are unpopular opinions. Oh my goodness, this is becoming a rant video and I did not mean that. Okay, I need to cut it short. All right, so Memory Lane by Becky Wade. Cover is super cute. It's contemporary romance. I have read Becky Wade in the past, and I really liked her books. But contemporary romance is always kind of shaky ground for me. This one is about a young woman. She rescues this man who is in the ocean swimming. I'm trying to think if it was like a lake or an ocean. It's in Maine, so that would be the ocean. And she rescues him, and he doesn't have any recollection, no memories, doesn't know who he is. And so it's their love story, trying to figure out what happened to him, who he is, an amnesia trope. And that premise sounds really interesting. And again, it was one of those books where it's marketed as Christian fiction, but it was more closer to clean fiction. And because it has that Christian fiction category, I rated it harsher, viewed it harsher because I have a higher standard for Christian fiction. And this one, again, the main characters are not Christian in the beginning. So again, they're kind of misled. They're doing things that aren't necessarily Christian, like meditation and yoga, hypnosis to kind of help him figure out who he is. There was some other content, I can't remember what it is, but not explicitly Christian. But I kept reading it. I forgave it because the characters are not Christian. There is a trigger warning for rape and sexual assault in the past. And so Remy is the main character. I did not like her character. She was really hard to connect with. She was like the entire opposite of me. She's very like artsy and very scattered and eclectic. And the description of her house with everything on the walls and every square inch is covered with stuff just kind of stressed me out a little bit. But yeah, so I didn't really like her as a character. She was very really rude towards the main guy and like very standoffish and like not letting him in, which I get from her past a little bit. Like, yes, you have to break down a barrier. Like there's some healing that needs to happen. But it was too much. And yeah, there's a scene where, he's trying to help her like be more comfortable. And so he's like, you can touch me however you want to, which sounds a little bit, you can touch my face and like, explore and kind of, feel more comfortable. And I was like, this is weird. Like, she's like touching his face and like kissing him. And I'm like, ew, I don't want to read. I don't want to read that explicit. Like, can a kiss not just be they kissed or, how they felt about it, not getting into details about it. They didn't do anything. Like it wasn't explicit or anything. It's just an odd scene to kind of help her feel comfortable with him and their romance. So really, like, if I've learned from this experience, and I probably would have DNF'd it a lot sooner. Now looking back, I'm like, I probably would have DNF'd it. Dear Henry, Love Edith by Becca Kinzer. And I felt bad about this one because so many people love it, and I did like it up to a certain point. And this is just a preference thing. Like, there was nothing really wrong with the book, in my opinion, but it's more of a preference thing. It's about two characters, Edith and Henry, and Edith needs a place to stay because she is volunteering at a nursery, like a service type endeavor. So she's volunteering, so she needs a place to stay because she's from out of town. And so somebody she knows gets her connected with Henry. They don't ever meet each other. They just talk to each other via notes and emails. And so he lives on the first floor and she lives on the bottom floor. They never really meet each other for a while. So they wrongly assume that they are both older, and they're both the same age in actuality. And it was super cute up until they both found out who the other person was, and they decided to withhold that information from each other. So that miscommunication trope is, I'm not a fan of. It bothers me. So that was one thing. And then the other thing, I don't know if it's just the season of life where I am sleep deprived and so I have no patience, but there were townspeople, because this is set in a small town, so everybody knows each other, and the small town antics that a lot of people think are funny was not funny to me. They were just more annoying than anything. Yeah, that totally probably is a me thing, but yeah, so that one wasn't a favorite for me, unfortunately. But last one is Brand of Light by Ronnie Kindig, I think is her name. This one was unfortunate because I got this as a gift, and I really thought I would like it because it has such a pretty cover, and it's set in space, and there's supposed to be a romance, and I was like, yes, it's Christian fiction, let's go. But the way it was written was not a good match for my brain. The way things were explained, it was like, is this what it's talking about? Like, it would write it in a way where it already assumed you knew what it was talking about. So there was for example, there's a creature that the main character is riding in the beginning, and I was like, is this supposed to be a horse? You know, I cannot picture what this creature looks like because there was no description other than the name given to it. And then towards the very end of the book, oh, it is a horse-like creature. I'm like, okay, that would have been great to know in the beginning. So things like that. And then at the climax of the book, some things happen and you're like, what in the world is happening? Like, I don't understand. Why did this happen? More questions. It just kind of irritated me. There were more questions than answers. Hardly any answers, actually. And in the very, very end of the book is what it made me so mad. There was something that happened, and I'm like, are we doing this? No, we're not doing this. Like, this is so wrong. It bothered me to no end. And yeah, if you've read it and you know what I'm talking about, feel free to comment, or, you know, be careful not to do spoilers because somebody may like this book. But message me on Instagram or something, because I'm still reeling. I read this back in February, I think, and I still am so not happy with the ending. It made me so mad. Anyways, so I'm sorry that turned into a rant session. I didn't mean for it to, but yeah, if you like some of these books, that's totally fine. We have our own tastes, our own convictions. You know, that's the way the cookie crumbles. I just wanted to share my thoughts and, you know, take with them what you will. But yeah, so that's the end of this video. I will catch you in the next one. I hope you have a great day. Bye.